Welcome to the training range. Let's get started on training in the AC-130. I'm first going to take you through operating the sensor along with all the HUD elements. Then we move on to the guns. We are in the AC-130J model, also known as the Ghost Rider, which is outfitted with a forward-looking infrared or FLIR sensor. The camera sees only heat radiation and presents it in either white hot or black hot. You can adjust this by using the X key to swap between modes. Go ahead and do this now. Changing between modes can be important to see detail better in certain situations, so be sure to change it if you are looking for more clarity. Some of the older variants do not have a FLIR sensor, but have a night observation device or NOD. This sensor simply illuminates low levels of light and does not have separate settings, so what you see is what you get. You can adjust the brightness of the sensor using the num key 1 and 7, or the contrast of the sensor using the num key 3 and 9. Now, moving on to adjusting the sensor's angle. By default, the sensor's movement is made to emulate the motion of a joystick. This means the movement is relative. The further the mouse is moved away from the center of the screen, the more it will move in that direction. This setting can be changed in the options menu if desired, but having relative movement can make it easier to track moving targets, as it does not require constant mouse movement. The speed of the sensor's movement is modified using the G and B keys. If you are having trouble getting used to the relative movement of the sensor, a lower sensor speed will help you maintain control. If you need the sensor to maintain a visual on a particular location, you can lock the sensor view by pressing the T key. The system will lock and automatically adjust the sensor's angle to maintain visual of that specific point. Now, there is lots of useful and important information displayed in your HUD. Beginning at the top center of the screen is the mission timer. Underneath that is the aircraft's bank angle indicator. The notches from top to bottom indicate a 0-degree bank, a 20-degree bank, and a 45-degree bank. Just below that, you have the sensor's crosshairs, along with a compass that will rotate to indicate the appropriate cardinal direction. To the left of the crosshair there is a number. This is the distance in meters from the gunship to the point center of the crosshairs. This will be an important reference later when talking gunnery. Below that number are the relative traversal indicators for the sensors and gun. The indicator that looks like a ladder indicates the vertical traversal range. The V on the left of the ladder indicates your sensor, while the circle indicates the gun itself. To the right of that is the horizontal traversal range. The center notch represents the center point of the traversal range and an exact left vector to the aircraft. Moving to the bottom left of the screen, you have two important pieces of information: the impact dispersion and the time of flight. The impact dispersion indicates how dispersed the rounds will impact at the given range, expressed in meters. The time of flight indicates how long in seconds it will take the rounds to impact. Both are dependent upon the specific munition that is armed and the distance to the target. Moving to the bottom right of the screen, you have the sensor speed setting, the zoom magnification, and the brightness and contrast setting. To the left of those is the sensor mode or FLIR mode, either set to white hot or black hot. Now there are some movable elements on the HUD that we need to go over. The first are markers that we can set to keep things organized on the battlefield. The first is the nav marker, which indicates the center of orbit. This can be changed using the space bar, but the pilot will always attempt to maintain an orbit around this point. There will be more of this and its importance as we get into gunnery later. You may also see other markers labeled as FM for friendly marker and HM for hostile marker. These will be updated and explained to you during the missions. Lastly, you may have noticed an indicator that looks like a plus sign with a circle in it. This is the prograde indicator that shows you exactly where the guns are in their traversal range. If the prograde indicator is in the center of the screen, the guns are exactly centered in their horizontal and vertical traversal range, essentially perpendicular to the aircraft's movement. As the indicator hits either the top or bottom of the screen, the guns have reached the vertical traversal limit and will be misaligned with the sensor. Similarly, if the indicator moves towards and hits the left or right sides of the screen, the guns have reached the horizontal traversal limit and will be misaligned with the sensor. It is important to always ensure this indicator is on screen, otherwise your guns will not fire in the direction your sensor is looking. That is everything related to the sensor and HUD. Now let's move on to the gunnery and the Fire Control Computer, or FCC. You can open the FCC display by pressing the O key. This gives you pertinent information about the aircraft and the guns. At the top of the window, you have the tangent indicator, which shows the gun in its traversal range. Like the HUD prograde indicator, this shows the vertical and horizontal angle of the gun relative to its traversal range. Again, if the lines are at or near the edges of the circle, the guns will become misaligned with the sensor. Below that, you have a display for each gun indicating the temperature, pitch, and yaw angle, and the modified tweak to those angles. Depending on the range and attack angle of the munition being fired, the round's impact can be offset to the point of aim of the sensor. It is smart to tweak your guns to impact as close to the center of your sensor's crosshairs to ensure accuracy. Let's do that now. Look for the target marked by hostile marker 1 and go ahead and arm gun 2, the 105, by pressing the number 3 key. You can see in the top left corner of the screen there is now pertinent information about the armed gun and munition. Going from top left to bottom right, you have the selected gun name, the selected munition name, the selected munition type, the current ammo count, the munition fuse name, the munition fuse type, which is either point detonation or airburst, and then the fire mode, which is either semi or auto. Now, look at the target below, fire a shot, and adjust the offset until your impacts are on target. Good. Now that it's on target, look for the target marked by hostile marker 2 and take a shot at it. Notice how the round impacts in a different location. As mentioned before, there are 2 factors you need to account for: distance and attack angle. Farther engagement distances means gravity will have more time to pull the round to the ground. Attack angle, or the angle at which a round is fired relative to the earth, means how much gravity can and will affect the round. Firing straight down will result in no change to impact, as the movement of the round is parallel to gravity. The greater the attack angle is, the greater the influence gravity will have on the round. Re-engage the target on hostile marker 2, but attempt to hit the target using Kentucky windage, or by simply adjusting your aim rather than tweaking the settings. Good shot. It generally is best practice to tweak the guns to be accurate to a specific distance and angle, then use Kentucky windage to adjust during engagements. It usually is advisable to keep the center of the orbit fixed on or near the target you are engaging. This will ensure your guns remain close to the center of their traversal range, giving maximum range left and right to engage, as well as allowing your tweak settings to be as accurate as possible throughout engagements. It is important to always keep an eye on your gun temperature to make sure it doesn't get too high. The system will prevent you from firing if the temperature is above 1000 degrees Fahrenheit. This should cover operating all the previous gunships and their guns. But lastly, let's look at operating laser-guided munitions. All gunships have a laser designator and can direct laser-guided munitions launched from other aircraft, but only the AC-130 gunship has its own guided munitions it can use. First, there are 2 different ways you can activate the laser. You can activate laser tracking, which toggles on and off with the right mouse button. This method is helpful to engage moving targets, as it allows you to manually move the position of the laser actively. Be careful not to disengage the laser while the munition is in the air, as it can cause it to miss the target location. Go ahead and arm the HellFires using the number 4 key and begin tracking the moving vehicle located near the hostile marker 3. You can fire the HellFire rocket as soon as you are actively tracking the target with the laser. Now let's talk about the other method. You can activate the laser on a particular target and it will remain aiming at that point regardless of the sensor's angle. You can activate the laser by pressing the L key. Go ahead and laze the enemy infantry at hostile marker 1. Then after the laser is active, engage with another Hellfire. Nice one. Although Hellfires aren't great area effect weapons, they are the most accurate munitions we have. Applying a lot of damage very accurately is their specialty, so be sure to select them when the circumstance fits. Okay, so last but not least, let's talk about countermeasures. Our gunship is outfitted with many sophisticated systems that help it defeat the more sophisticated weapons. However, the less sophisticated ones are the ones more dangerous to us. For instance, unguided, high-caliber weapons like the Dishka or the Zu-23 anti-aircraft gun can tear through the aircraft, but are relatively inaccurate, and we can dodge these. However, munitions from Manpads or man-portable air defense systems like the Stinger or Igla are hard to track after launched because they don't emit anything we can track, and they accurately seek after heat signatures in the air. This makes these types of missiles troublesome because if we don't throw off the missile sensors, we'll get smoked. We can deploy flares to do this, but it requires the missile to be within a certain distance of us and a bit of luck. You can deploy flares by pressing the F key. Each time you press the key, a single flare will be deployed. You can track the quantity of flares in the HUD at the bottom of the screen just left of the sensor mode. Now let's put this to the test. When our systems detect a launch has occurred near us, it will sound an alarm. It's like a high-pitched, fast beeping noise. If you hear this, you need to be on the lookout for smoke in the air. Timing is very important. You can waste flares by firing them off too early, but firing them too late will not affect the missile in time. It can be hard to judge this if you don't have a visual on the missile. Okay, let's practice this. Keep an eye out for any missile launches and attempt to defeat the missile with your flares. Be sure to engage the target firing the missile to prevent them from re-engaging.
Flare.
Good, two armed. Good work. Our aircraft can't take too much damage before going down, so it's important to stay vigilant. Now that you have a grasp on everything, let's do some target practice. Feel free to arm whichever gun you would like and engage the targets as they appear. We'll engage 20 targets and then conclude the training exercise. Happy hunting.